How's it going, everyone? Thank you for stopping by the channel today. This video is actually going to be our third video in our 6-part series about how to make more money tournament fishing, and this video is actually going to go over homework before you get to the lake for practice and for your tournament, right? So doing research on the lake, getting information on the lake and on the body of water you're going to fish, learning how to navigate it, how to fish it, learning how it sets up. Is it deep? Is it shallow? Is it a highland reservoir, lowland reservoir? Is there grass? Is there rock? Is there docks? Stuff like that. So we're going to dive into map studying, getting information online, and just everything that Ian and I do before we get to tournament waters, before practice, to kind of give ourselves an advantage over our competitors during practice and during the tournament day. So let's roll the intro and we'll get into it. Right there you go.
What? Why? I think I like it.
All right, everyone. So this is kind of how I go about doing a map study, I guess, in a sense. At least most of my map studies done this way for Ian and I's tournaments, and whenever Ian does do it occasionally, he also does it this same way. We also use the Navionics app. We have it on our phone, and I use that to more look at offshore, contours, because it's just a topo map of the lake. So I'll show that here in a second. But Google Earth Pro here is my favorite tool to use. I learn more about lakes using this than probably any other tool available. And so I kind of just want to go over real quick how I go about it. I'm not going to do the whole lake, just because that would take me probably an hour or two, and nobody wants to sit through that. So I'm just going to do a few spots and kind of show you guys what I do. So the first thing, you open Google Earth Pro, you have My Places over here. So what you're going to do, you're going to right click on My Places, go to Add, and then hit Folder. You'll title the folder. I like to just title it the name of the lake. So Lake Athens, hit OK. And you can see here now, here at the bottom, Lake Athens is available on the list of My Places. Don't pay any attention to this. This is all super messed up from a long time ago, but right here you have it. So then what I'll do is I'll go up here to this time, this clock, and that allows me to show all of the satellite images on the lake taken over the years. So this is the most recent in 2023. If I go back, that this is also 2023, but August, so it's a few months ago. Go back, that's 2022. Go back 2020, and so on and so forth. You guys get the point. But what I like to do is I like to search through and find the historical imagery from when the lake was lowest, because that's going to allow you to see stuff that's under the water nowadays if the lake is full or up from whatever it was. Typically here in Texas, if you go to around 2014, it starts to get lower. If you go to 2012, you can see here there's a lot more showing. We'll go back one more just to kind of see. That looks like it might even have a little more. 2009 is back up. So that's the one I'm going to choose. I typically like to choose winter. See, this is January of 2012. I like to choose winter if I can, if there's a historical image with the water low during the winter, because you don't have as much foliage along the banks. There's not, leaves on the trees. Everything's dead because it's the wintertime. And so there's not shadows on the image from the trees that are making it harder to see what you need to see along the bank. So that's just a little tip. Try to find one where the water's low during the winter months. It'll allow you to see a lot more. And then basically what I do, I'll just pick a random section of the lake here. Let's just kind of do this area. So I'll zoom in, and I'll just start, I'll start in one spot on the lake, and I'll start moving around, just grabbing it and moving it. A little too zoomed in there, but the image is a little fuzzy on this lake. So you do have to combat that sometimes, but I'll zoom in and out, kind of look at stuff. You have points here, rounded points, but it doesn't really look like there's much on it other than clay. You can mark those. Sometimes fish do get on those in certain times of the year, but you can also see that same thing on your topo map on Navionics, basically. So I don't typically mark those unless I see shell or rock or brush on it. Or if I see a bottom composition change, like if it goes from sand to rock, or from big chunk rock to gravel, I'll mark that most of the time. This is really blurry. I apologize, guys. I don't know why this image is so blurry. So that's a little interesting there. That could be maybe like an old pond, or maybe they just dug it out deeper in the back of this pocket for those ducks. So you can just kind of look around the lake for stuff like that. You can see there's a point there, point there. I'm trying to find something really definitive, like a nice rock pile for us. A long point here. So something like this I would mark. So when you want to mark something, you'll go up here where it says add place mark. Click the place mark. You'll move the place mark to the cover that you want it on, and then leave it be. Come over here to the title of the place mark and title it whatever you want. So for this one, I would just do LP for long point. I like to abbreviate just because when you transfer these pins to your graph, if you write out something like long point, or really long point, something like that, whenever you transfer it to the graph, if you have 100 waypoints on the lake, or 1,000 waypoints, or 10,000 waypoints, you have one here and one here and one here and one here. When you put them on your graph, all the lettering is going to get really scrunched together, and you're not going to be able to see the map of the lake on your graph because it'll just all be lettering. So I like to keep it short and sweet, simple, and just do LP for long point. And just make sure you stay consistent with your abbreviations, and that you know what they mean. That way you don't get confused. So, and then you hit OK, and that saves the waypoint on the point. So now I know when I go back to when the water's higher, you can see as I keep coming, now I know that that point right here that you can see on the normal image actually extends really far out into the lake, all the way out here. So that's kind of just how I do it. I'll start on one section of the lake, and I'll just kind of start going down the banks. Sometimes I'll zoom in to get clarification on things, and then zoom back out. And super easy, simple process. It takes time, but everything in fishing takes time, and you got to be willing to do the work if you want to get better. So that's kind of the process there. This looks like it could be some kind of shelf rock or gravel, maybe shell. I'm trying to find something a little more interesting, like a big rock pile or something. Here we go. So there, that image is terrible. And sorry for that background noise, guys. That is my computer fan. My computer does not necessarily like running this software for very long. My computer's getting older and it's in rough shape, so it kind of struggles with things like this. So that's what that fan is that you're hearing. Man, what I'm learning so far right now about Lake Athens is there's not really a lot here. So bear with me one second. I'm going to pick a different lake, and that has some easier features to kind of look at so you guys can get an example. So yeah, bear with me one second. I'll be right back. All right, guys. So went to a different lake. I'm not going to name this one because, yeah, I'm not going to name this one. But so as you can see here, I'm kind of on this side of this bank here on this point. And as you go down, there's a little secondary rounded point here. And you can see right there is a little pile of chunk rock right on the side of this secondary point. So that could be a really good spot. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Subtle little things like that that you're not going to know exist when the water's up. And for this one, I would put RP for rock pile. And then hit enter. Now it's there. And so then when you bring the water back up, look at that. So you can see the water's normally up here in these trees. That rock pile is a good, 30 or 40 feet off of this last tree on this little point. And you would never know that's there if you didn't take the time before you went to the lake to look at the map and find it, or if you just happen to be on the lake scanning down the side of this bank and see it with your graphs. But this allows you to find areas to go scan and look for fish a lot quicker than just showing up on the lake with your topo map and your graphs and just trying to scan as much water as you can, trying to find cover. This allows you to find the cover beforehand, and then when you get on the lake, you have all these waypoints on your graph, and then you go look at all of them and you scan each one and you look for fish and you look for the cover that you know is already there. So it just makes the entire practice process quicker by doing your homework beforehand and looking at the map beforehand. Um, so yeah, as you guys can see there, it was really low during this time, and there's some shrubbery kind of growing on the rocks there. Um, but yeah, there's a nice pile of rocks right there. Here you have a little bit of a deeper pool along this point, like a deeper hole, I guess. This looks like it could be an old boat ramp. I believe that is an old boat ramp, so I would put that there and hit, you know, that, and then just say something like ramp. Nice and easy. Hit enter. There you go. It's saved. And you go back, look at it when the water's up. You can see the water was really low in this photo. But look at it when the water's up. It's under the water. So stuff like that allows you to find shallow and mid-range cover that's not quite on the bank where you can see it. And a lot of that more mid-range depth, it can be a lot of times some of the best water to look at, because it doesn't get fished as much. Most of the time, people are either fishing out really deep offshore or they're fishing right up against the bank. And so those kind of shallower, mid-depth, not quite on the bank but not quite out in the middle of the lake offshore fish don't get pressured near as much and can be a little bit easier to get to bite once you find them. So just something to keep in mind. On some lakes, like really shallow flat lakes, you can see half the lake whenever you draw it down, especially in the backs of the big major creeks and stuff. You can see half the lake whenever you go back in time and look at when the water was low. You can see half the backs of the creeks and find all kinds of stuff. You can find road beds. You can find um, old bridges, rock piles, you know, boat ramps, points, channel swings, ditches along flats for the spring and the pre-spawn. You can find timber, but you can find brush piles. I don't typically like to mark brush piles on Google Earth Pro, just because a lot of the times you have to go back so far before the water's actually down low enough for you to see that a lot of those brush piles that you may be finding that were there in those spots in 2013 have either washed away or they've rotted away. So I don't typically like to mark brush piles on Google Earth unless the image I'm looking at is like 3 years old or newer, or unless it's a really, really big brush pile and I think some of it could still be there. But things like standing timber, stumps, road beds, rock piles, ramps, old bridges, points, channel swings, stuff like that, you can find all of that doing this, and it can really help you narrow your search down before you get to the lake. So this is the main way that Ian and I do our homework on a lake before we get there for a tournament, and find spots to go look at and practice, so that we're not spending as much of our practice time in dead water, and we're using every minute of practice that we have efficiently, because time is money in tournament bass fishing. So the more time you can save yourself by doing things at home before you get to the water, the better you're going to be in the long run. And this has been probably the main factor in the last few years as to why we've been able to become pretty successful in our tournaments. Before in high school, we would look at the map, but we wouldn't do it in as much detail. We maybe would just look at the top of map. Maybe we would look at Google Maps instead of Google Earth Pro, where you can't draw the water down, and just try to see what's up against the bank. And we would be missing so many things that are holding fish that you can't see unless you do this beforehand. And so the last 3 or 4 years that we've gotten, you know, pretty consistent and been doing pretty well consistently in, all these tournaments that we fish, a big, big, big part of it has been because we take the time before each tournament to break down lakes and on Google Earth Pro and Navionics, and look at the map and break down the entire lake before we even get there. That way, when you get to a new body of water, it's not so intimidating and it doesn't feel like a new body of water. You have all these points to go look at, and it kind of feels more like you know the lake, even though you've never been there. So that's the main thing there. And then, let's go back over to Lake Athens 1 second. All right, guys, we're back over to Lake Athens on that long point. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick. If I see something that looks interesting on the map here, when I'm doing this, and I don't quite know what it is because sometimes I do. I find structures that I'm not 100% sure what it is, or sometimes the image won't be super clear. It'll be kind of fuzzy, and I won't know what it is. I'll just place the place marker. Say there's something here that I'm wanting to go look at, and I'll just put a question mark on it, and that lets me know that there's something there, but I'm not exactly sure what it is, and I need to go scan it to find out more detail about what it is. So that's how I handle things. That's how I do things with the Google Earth Pro side of things to kind of see as much as I can on the lake before I get there. Once I have, my set of points, which normally I'll have, several hundred, maybe several thousand, depending on the size of the lake. Once I'm ready, what I'll do is I will click on the place, file, save, save place as Lake Athens. You want to save it to your desktop on your laptop or a folder if you have one. And then I'll do a KMZ file. I'll hit save. So once I've hit save, I can exit Google Earth Pro. And right here on my desktop, there's the KMZ file. You can open that up on your laptop or your phone and show it to you, or you can also transfer that to your graph. You can also transfer these files to your graph. There's a way to do it for all of the units, whether you have Humminbird, Lowrance, or Garmin. There's a way to do it. You can look it up online. It's a little tricky, but you can do it. You can transfer the KMZ file straight to your graph and have all of those waypoints on your graph loaded up onto your topo map so that next time you go out on the water, you don't have to constantly be looking at your phone for the KMZ file. You can just look right on your graph and you have all the waypoints that you marked in practice or that you marked while you were doing this on your boat, on your map, on your fish finder, so that while you're practicing, you can run around to each one of them and check them out. So that's the first thing that we do. That's the main thing that really has helped us a lot when it comes to doing homework and map studies before tournaments. That's helped us achieve a lot more in fishing tournaments. It's a lengthy process, especially if you're fishing a really big lake. I've done map studies on smaller lakes that only take me 30 minutes to an hour. And I've done map studies on lakes like Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend, real big lakes that take me, 6 to 8 hours. So you have to be willing to take some time to do it. It's very time consuming and it's hard work. But if you put in the work and you take the time to do it, I promise you it will pay dividends greatly in your fishing game. So that is the first thing. That's how Google Earth Pro works. That's how we use it to, find spots to go fish. And now we're going to move on to Navionics and then just general research. All right, guys. So here we are, Navionics. It's the Garmin mapping brand. You can also use, you can use the Humminbird Lake Master Mapping, the Lowrance, CMAP. Any of them really work. I just like Navionics, and Ian does too because it's just what we have. We have Garmin graphs, so I like to be consistent with it. But so what we do basically after we're done looking at Google Earth Pro, up in the shallow and mid-range depths around the bank and on high spots out in the lake. Especially for summer tournaments or winter tournaments, anytime that the fish are a lot deeper, um, or that you're thinking they'll be a lot deeper, the Google Earth Pro can only show you so much. And so that's why we use Navionics, because Navionics will show you all of the stuff in water that is too deep for your Google Earth Pro to show you. So let's go back to Lake Athens. Let me find it real quick. Here it is. Okay, so Lake Athens, you can see here. This is zooming really fast, but here we go. So you can see it's just a topographic map of the lake. It shows you all the contours lake wide. It's very nice. Shows you, a general makeup of the bank as well, which makes it easy to line up your Navionics points with your Google Earth Pro points as well. So you guys can see here, looking here, we have this kind of rounded point. It's kind of rounded flat, probably a hard spot based on those contours. It looks like it's probably hard bottom and then it drops off into deeper water. Looking for stuff like that. This one as well is kind of a high spot, probably a hard bottom, kind of more of a secondary one. Maybe not as big, doesn't get fished as much, and it drops off into deeper water as well. Looking for stuff like that. Here you have kind of a more steep point than these ones, and that one's kind of steep all the way off this island into deeper water. Same thing here. This one has a nice flat high spot on the top, probably hard bottom there as well. Typically, these kind of more flatter spots on the tops of points like this are going to have harder bottom. So that's something to keep in mind. I like to look for those. And also, one thing that's nice about Navionics, it shows you where there's flooded timber on the lake. It'll show you things like house foundations, old road beds, submerged bridges, submerged culverts, things like that. I'm seeing if I can find one. It'll show you humps out in the middle of the lake, right? Um, this one's 29 feet deep on top and drops into 37 feet, so that's pretty deep. See, normally these little red blocks are house foundations. It'll if you click on them in the app right there, you click on it, then you click this, it says single building, right? So that's saying that there's a building there. There's an old house foundation there. Um, and I'm not, yeah, you can add a marker to it if you get the app. So this is on the web app because I'm doing it on my laptop so I can screen record. On your phone, if you get the app on your phone, which is what Ian and I typically use when we're using Navionics, it has all these same features. But then you can click on marker, and then you can actually place the marker on it, and you can mark it as a waypoint, and it'll give you the exact longitude and latitude coordinates for that spot, and you can also transfer the waypoints from Navionics to your graph as well. So yeah, that's just one thing to keep in mind. If there was something here that said brush pile or something, or if like I wanted to put a marker on this kind of little rounded point along this contour here, then on my phone I would click it, click this, click marker, and then there would be a way right here where I could put a marker down, and then it would have like a little fish icon or an anchor icon. There's several different icons, but it would put the icon right there on the point. And then when you go back and click on that icon later, it'll tell you when you added the waypoint and the GPS coordinates of the waypoint itself. And then you can transfer all those waypoints to your graph. So that's how we use Navionics. It's pretty simple. Just kind of go down around these, around the lake, just like I do on the Google Earth Pro. But instead of looking up at the bank, most of the time I'm looking out here in deeper water that Google Earth Pro can't show me, looking for things like this hump or things like this point, things like this kind of ledge right here. You kind of have a little bit of a ledge right here. This is also good for identifying deeper channel swings a lot of the time, or identifying where a channel is. Like you can see right here, there's a creek channel that runs right through here into the back of this arm. And you got a point on both sides with high spots, and then you have this creek channel that kind of creates a ditch there, and it runs into this flat. So you can identify all kinds of things like that on Navionics that you wouldn't be able to identify on Google Earth Pro. So that's why it's important to use the 1-2 punch of both a topo map and the Google Earth Pro, so that you can get a full picture before you even get to the lake of the depth, how everything lays out, and get plenty of spots both up shallow, mid-range, and out deep. So that way you kind of know the lake and you know what to go look for, and you have a plan for once you get there on if once you kind of get around and start fishing, the fish will start to tell you if they're deep, shallow, mid-depth, and then you have a bunch of spots from your map study on Google Earth and Navionics and all those different depth ranges, and then you can start to try and pattern the fish across the lake. So that's kind of how we use it. You can also see one thing that's cool about Navionics, you can do stuff like this. You can click on that, and you can see here, someone a long time ago added that there's a weeds and a flat near a drain right there. You can click it, and it will give you information on when it was added. And sometimes people will put a description and describe exactly what the cover is and how to set up on it and stuff. So it's just an all-around great tool to learn as much as you can about the lake and how the bottom of the lake sets up before you even get to the lake. So really great tool, really, really, really useful, and it helps us catch a lot of fish, especially in the winter, in the summer, in the early fall, late spring, whenever the fish are offshore and off the bank. This is what we rely on more than anything. You can see here it's got the main river channel of the lake. Those dotted lines, that's what that is, and it kind of swings up tight against this point and then kind of swings back out and swings back in. So you could look and find these sections where this river channel swings up against these points. And that's going to create a ledge, and then you can go target those ledges. So there's a lot of different ways to find areas uh, to fish and find potential patterns just by looking at the top of map. And it also can show you hazards, like right here it says hazard pipe. So you probably don't want to run over that. You might hit the pipe. It also shows you where there's flooded timber, where the water's shallow, too shallow to even map. So it also can help with navigation as well, which is just a safety thing. So great tool. Using this and Google Earth Pro as a 1-2 punch is how Ian and I map study lakes before we get to tournaments to gain an understanding of the body of water we're going to be on and gain confidence in what we're going to be doing during practice and eventually the tournament. All right, guys, now I'm going to show you what websites and stuff we use to kind of gain information on the lake other than just the way that the lake sets up. All right, guys, so real quick, I wanted to say one more thing about Navionics before we jump into the next section. I'm going to throw some screenshots up here from the Navionics app on my phone because, like I said, that's what Ian and I normally use. We normally don't use the web app because it doesn't have the same features. But as you can see here from these screenshots from my phone, the Navionics mobile app on your phone is even better than what I showed you guys on that screen recording. You can depth shade just like you can on your Garmin graphs, and I'm sure the other brands can do that as well, where you can shade different depth ranges, different colors to kind of make the screen pop and to kind of make it easier to read the topographic map. And then also I'm showing screenshots right now of what I was talking about, where you can go and find a point or a roadbed or whatever you want to mark on there, and you can click the little blue question mark on the side of your crosshairs. You can click the marker button, and then there's plenty of icons. You can pick an icon and hit save, and it will save, as you guys are seeing right now, it will save that icon on that piece of structure, and then you can go look at it during the tournament. You can transfer it to your graphs, or you can just use your phone. The cool thing about Navionics that's kind of a disadvantage about Google Earth Pro is that Navionics, when you're in the app, you actually see your current location just like you would on Apple Maps or Google Maps. And you can see your location on the lake. It gives you a little triangular icon, and that actually shows you where you are. So while you drive around the lake, you can take a look down at your phone on the Navionics app and see how far away or close you are to the waypoint, and you can actually help yourself set up on a waypoint just using your phone and using the top of map on Navionics. So real quick, just wanted to throw that in there. Now we're going to get into the other ways that we do homework before we get to the lake. I know one more thing that I wanted to show you guys is how to find information on your lake beyond just contour maps and looking at maps to try and find areas. You can also find information on the lake by just looking up information on Google. So one page that Ian and I really like to use here in Texas is the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department page. It's really helpful. So what you can do is, like, if I'm going to Lake Athens for a tournament, I'll just type in on Google fishing Lake Athens, right? And I'll hit that. And you see the first one that pops up is the Fishing Lake Athens Texas Parks and Wildlife Department page. You click that, if it'll load. Bear with me here, guys. Okay. Now you're on the lake page. They have a lake page for pretty much every lake in the state of Texas. There's a few that don't, but they're mostly smaller lakes or private lakes. Even some of the small private lakes have one, but most every lake and all of the big public bodies of water for sure in Texas have their own lake page. So you can come here to get licenses. You can get all kinds of information, fish identification, consumption. You can also get information on the Reservoir Controlling Authority, if there's any boat ramp closures, where the boat ramps are at along the lake. You can get directions to the lake. You can get the number to the office and how to contact the biologist on the body of water. You can read up on all kinds of stuff. You can get information on the water level, which is important when you're going to fish a lake. So super cool. You can get information on the surface area, the max depth, when it was impounded, the like I said, the water level, how much the lake typically fluctuates each year, as well as the normal clarity of the lake whenever it hasn't been raining or whenever there hasn't been a change to the water clarity. They have information on what aquatic vegetation is present. So here it says, coontail, pondweed, alligator weed, lilies. It even tells you kind of where in the lake it's mostly found. For Lake Athens specifically on this one, it tells you the fish species in the lake. You can find out the lake records, stocking history, survey reports, fishing reports. For bigger lakes, a lot of times they'll have lake maps, or they'll at least have links to where you can purchase one. It tells you the fishing regulations for your lake. So, some lakes have slots, like Lake Fork. This is where you'd find it. You'd click the link here. and then it gives you angling opportunities, right? So it says known for largemouth bass in the 3 to 8 pound range. It gives you a chart. It says largemouth bass fishing in this lake is excellent, catfish poor, crappie fair, and so on. So there's a lot of information. It even has, fishing cover and structure. Talks about the emergent vegetation. Talks about the timber. Talks about the riprap along the dam and some of the docks, and then tips and tactics. Gives you, tips and tactics on how to catch the different species of fish available in the lake, and during what times of the year to use which tips and tactics, and which times of the year are best. Bigger lakes are going to be more detailed. Like if you look at the lake page for Lake Fork, it's way more detailed. There's a lot more information. So sometimes other lakes pages are more helpful than other ones, but still a great place to look. And you can look at the fishing report. This is what I like to do. The fishing report, if it'll load, they update these every Wednesday. So this one hasn't been updated yet for this week. This was last week's. But it gives you an overall grade, tells you what the water clarity is, what the water temperature is, how high or low it is, and then it gives you information on what the bass are doing, what the crappie are doing, what the catfish are doing in some lakes, striper. It just depends on what's in the lake. But like right here, it says bass are schooling, catch them on small shad pattern swim baits or spinner baits, playing fish shallow. Typically, I don't pay too much attention to, this part of the fishing report, because that's just what this guide that does the report says, but there's always more ways to catch fish on a lake. I typically look at the fishing report. The main reason I look is to get information on the current water clarity and temperature. That's the biggest thing I look for in these fishing reports. That helps me because knowing the clarity and temperature, and even how high or low it is, will give me an idea of where I want to start, whether I want to start deep or shallow, and kind of will give me an idea on what seasonal pattern I think the bass are going to be in on that lake on the days that I'll be there. So monitoring this is why I use this page more than anything. And then if you go back, you can also, like I said, you can look at the current lake level. This one's updated hourly, I believe. So right now it says Lake Athens is 89% full. Yeah, it's updated daily. So you can see 2 days ago it was 89.2% full. Yesterday 89.1, and today 89. So it is actually losing water at the moment. If you scroll down to the second chart, it's even more recent, an hour, 2 hours, 6 hours prior. And that one will show you the actual water level and elevation versus the full pool level. And then it'll tell you how high or low it is over here. So it's just a great website to gain a lot of information about the lake before you even get there. Super, super great tool. So Ian and I use this one a lot. About real quick at the end of this video was a few of the other websites Ian and I like to use to do homework. So this is the first one. This is Omnia Fishing. I'm sure some of you are familiar with them. They're one of my sponsors, and we do a lot with them. We've done a giveaway with them before. But they're an online tackle store, but they're not like any other tackle store. They're very unique. They have a lot of information, and it's personalized. You see here it says Shop by Lake. So they have a map of the United States and the world, on their website, and they have every lake, and there's different ambassadors like myself who, whenever we go fishing, we write fishing reports on the lake that we were fishing and publish them on here, and we recommend tackle, rods, reels, line, lures, hooks, everything. We recommend tackle. We talk about how we were catching the fish, what we were seeing, the water temperature, general patterns on the lake, and just overall information on the lake that's current. This is the most current information that you're going to find on your lakes is looking at this website. And if you get the Premium Pro membership, you also get access to looking at things like the current water temperature. They have the map of the lake with the water temperature around the lake, so you actually can see the water temperature in different sections of the lake as well. So this is a really good tool to learn a lot about your lake before you get there. You can see this is Lake Louisville, for example. Click the star right here, and you can go to lake details, and it'll bring up top reported techniques, how many fishing reports there are on the lake, top reported species, water temperature. It'll bring up the map. It'll show you the top products reported on this lake for fall largemouth bass fishing. You can sort it by season, by technique. You can create Louisville kits. You can come down and look at all the fishing reports. You can filter by techniques and structures and season. Um, all kinds of stuff that you can find on this website, and it's all really, really good information, and it's really current information. Another one that's another sponsor of mine that you guys probably have seen on the channel is Lake Pro Tackle. Here at Lake Pro Tackle, another sponsor of mine, and they're like Omnia. They're not quite as big. Like Omnia's um, definitely covers basically all of the United States and might even cover other parts of the world. Lake Pro Tackle has a few reports, I think, on a few lakes and rivers outside of Texas, but for the most part, it's just Texas and Oklahoma, maybe a little bit of Louisiana and Arkansas as well. So it's a little bit more localized, but it's the same thing. You know, they sell rods, reels, tackle, but they also have fishing reports just like Omnia, and they have a list of different lakes. You know, these are all the Texas lakes they have on the website, quite a bit, a lot of the big ones. And then they also have Virginia. So um, they have a lot of great information on here too. You can go here and click on a lake, and it'll show you down here at the bottom if it'll load. Or there must not be a report on them on Carter. Let's go back. Let's go to. Let's do Lake Athens. Lake Athens got a little bit of information on the lake. There's videos. We update. You know, Sam updates, and sometimes I update the video report whenever we get new ones. So it's nice and current. But you can go down. Oh, this one doesn't have any either right now. Sorry about that, y'all. Let's find a bigger lake that I know has plenty. Let's do Lake Louisville. So Lake Louisville, right? Right here, you go down to the bottom. And you can see all of the reports is just in like a text thread. It tells you, you know, here's Sam right here. He's got the date, the water temps, water clarity, and then he talks about what he was doing and provides a picture, just like on Omnia. But, you know, it's good to use both websites because there's different people on both. I'm on both and I write reports on both, but there's some people who only use one or the other. So it's good to use both of those. And I'll have links to them as well as the rest of the Ian and I sponsors in the description of the video, like I do in every video. So, and then one other thing, I always like to keep tabs on the weather. So just using the weather app on my phone, I've got like 3 of them downloaded just to get, and then I kind of just take the averages for all of them in terms of precipitation, humidity, you know, sky conditions, weather patterns. Ian and I like to watch the weather at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance for the area around the lake that we're going to be at before we get to the tournament. That way we can kind of understand the general weather pattern for the couple weeks leading up to the tournament, so we can kind of make an educated guess on what the weather pattern, and if there's any weather changes, what that's going to do to the fish and their seasonal pattern. And then we like to use this website right here, Willy Weather, to look at the wind patterns and to get a forecast for the wind on the day we'll be there. So right now you can see there's not a lot of wind, 5.8 miles per hour. But if, let's say, my tournament's Wednesday, I can go to Wednesday and I can know that the wind is projected to be coming out of the south-southeast at 10.3 miles per hour. So that'll help me strategize which side of the lake I'm fishing on, and it kind of help me play the wind to my advantage. So definitely check out those 3 websites. And like I said, I'll leave Omnia and Lake Pro Tackle as well as the rest of our sponsors in the description of the video, so y'all check them out. All right, guys, so as you saw, it's a pretty long, lengthy process that we undergo before each tournament, doing our homework before we get to the lake, you know, between doing a whole breakdown of the map on Google Earth Pro and a whole breakdown of the map on Navionics, and then doing research on websites. There's a lot that we do on our computers and on our phones and even on our graphs before we get to the lake. It takes quite a lot of time and it's a lot of work, but if you do the work and you put in the time, I promise you, you will be better as an angler. You will learn a lot more about each lake that you go to. You'll be more confident when you get on the water, and you will have more success in tournaments. So that's our approach. And then we do also have one other thing that we do, you know, in addition to Google Earth Pro, Navionics, and researching on websites, we will also go on YouTube and we will look up, you know, YouTube videos of other people fishing on the lake, just to kind of get a sense for, you know, what maybe the local anglers around the lake like to throw, areas of the lake that they like to fish, and also it gives you a sense of what the fish do during different times of the year, especially if it's a very frequently fish lakes, there's normally a lot of content on YouTube, and all that content spans, sometimes on big lakes like Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend, there's videos for every month of the year. So you can go in and find videos that fit the time of year that you're going to be there and get ideas based on what those people in those videos did on what you should try while you're out on the water. Another thing that we really like to do is watch old Bassmaster and FLW or Major League Fishing tournaments. When the pros go to your body of water, that's a great way to learn. So whenever they're there live, definitely tune in, watch the pros on TV while they're live on your body of water. You can learn a lot. You can learn new patterns that maybe none of the locals really do. The pros have a way of unlocking things that don't really have, that the locals don't really do. They kind of think a little bit more outside the box and can unlock some pretty unique bites that maybe you hadn't thought of. But another reason that we like to watch the pros, in addition to watching them live and learning from them and learning about the body of water from them, but if you go back on YouTube and you look up old Bassmaster or FLW tournaments on the body of water, a lot of times the tournament organization, Bassmaster FLW, while they're running the tournament, they'll actually show on the lake where the top anglers in that tournament are fishing. So over the years, there's been a few lakes and a few tournaments that Ian and I have done really well in, where we got the spot that we caught him in just simply by watching an old Bassmaster tournament and seeing where Kevin Van Dam or Brandon Polnick or whoever won the tournament was fishing during that tournament. And if it lines up with the same time of year that we'll be there, we know that that's a good area for that time of year and it's worth going to look at. And we've had a lot of success doing that. So the main thing that I'm trying to get across in this video is to just use all of your resources. Make sure it's legal. Obviously, you don't want to break the tournament rules. You don't want to cheat. Nobody likes a cheater. But make sure, as long as what you're doing is legal, make sure with your tournament organization and their rules that it is. But using your resources, public websites about the lake, YouTube videos that are public, social media videos that are public, and then doing those map studies. If you combine all those things together before you get to a lake, you're going to feel a lot more confident when you get there, and you're going to have a lot more success as an angler. So that's how we do our homework before we get to the tournament waters, and we hope you all enjoyed this video. Please leave a like down below if you did, leave a comment, share it with a friend, and if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks as always. We'll see you on the next one.
Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor, ayy, on the road, here we go, yeah we winning by a landslide. Never see me coming on my landmine, yeah I ain't taking orders in command.